This park was destined for big things from the very beginning.
Williamsburg is carved out of God's canvas. The rolling hills and the forest.
It takes us out of our lives and lets us be in this safe environment.
The endurance and the success of Busch Gardens over the past 40 years is its unique ability to adapt.
You see the park nestled back here in the woods, and you don't realize the magnitude of it or everything it has to offer. When you get inside, it is such an amazing place, no matter what your interests are.
All of that you just don't see in a normal amusement park.
When you come to the park, you feel like you're visiting an old friend.
A real honor to introduce the president of Anheuser-Busch, Mr. August A. Busch III.
Each Busch Gardens incorporates a different theme, yet each has been developed around a single concept of wholesome, educational entertainment. I doubt that any company has ever come into any community with a more proud sense of privilege and respect.
In the beginning, the emphasis on Busch Gardens was really the old country, which of course is Europe, and that's what it was known as.
The Friendly Eagle, Busch Gardens' official goodwill ambassador, and his friends will lead us into the old country as we dedicate England, France, and Germany.
Like opening any new park for the very first time, it's hectic, it's crazy. John Roberts was the general manager and handled the opening ceremonies at the front gate. My main focus was making sure the employees were all in place and everybody was ready to open. I was rather nervous. We'll make sure everything was going to work all right. Anheuser-Busch had built a park next to their brewery in Tampa. In fact, I remember going there as a youngster, and it started as basically a bird park, and this grew and developed an African theme. Since they already had the theme park there, which they were growing, I think they thought adding Busch Gardens in Williamsburg made a lot of sense, and it'd tie in with the one down there. And I think there are thoughts of doing other Busch Gardens at other locations.
I think you have to step back and give a lot of credit to senior Anheuser-Busch executives to even start a feasibility study for a theme park in Williamsburg, Virginia. That was the first gutsy move. The second gutsy move was actually building a park in Williamsburg, Virginia, in a market that was untested. They were guessing, in some ways, that the people would come.
Ladies and gentlemen, we believe that the Old Country is the most unique family entertainment center in the United States.
Some of the parking lots were gravel. A lot of the administration buildings were in trailers. I believe the culinary and merchandise offices were in trailers at the time.
Before we opened, we had the offices in the hospitality center where they served beer after people went through the brewery tour. The second floor was a monorail station. Every time the monorail come in when they're testing it, you get this gust of air coming through there. And if you had papers on your desk, they'd probably go flying. The hospitality center is open to the public until about 5 o'clock. At least once a week we had what we called tap time. Any of the employees go over to the hospitality center and we'd open up the taps. But in the off season, 5 o'clock, I remember so well, John Hunter going down the hall, Mick Light, Bud. There were some good times. The attendance in 1975 exceeded expectation. We were jammed. We had people lined up. We had to close the parking lots. I remember so well being out by the toll booths, helping the parking attendants turn people away. I remember telling a guy that I was very sorry, but he says, I don't care, so I came all the way down here from New Jersey and I expect to get in. And I said, Sir, I'm sorry, but there's no place to park. If you come back in a couple hours, there'll be people leaving, and I'm sure you'll be able to get in at that time. We expanded the operation to accommodate the crowd. Opening, we had only 8 rides and nothing for the little kids. And I remember telling John from the beginning, I said, it's not enough, especially with King's Dominion up the road. We're going to get complaints, and we did. In fact, I remember one written letter that we got in saying, it's a beautiful shopping facility, but that was it. It needed more entertainment. The second year, 1976, when we brought on Oktoberfest, which added 8 additional rides, 5 major rides and 3 children rides. And that really made the park.
From the 70s, I remember a very small park, very intimate, but very welcoming. It wasn't like other parks we'd been to. It was beautifully laid out. The kids loved it because not only were there was a ride or 2 or 3 in the park. There weren't a lot, but there were birds and animals and the petting farm.
And one year I've seen a lady and a family, they were handing their children over the fence. They were on one side, the man was out there. Oh, that was when the petting zoo was there because the fences weren't that high. And he was passing them over the gate, not coming through on my patrol. I stood there beside them. They started passing them back on the other side of the fence and passed them one by another like they had never done anything. So I was laughing so hard. I said, sir, you can't do that, you know. I didn't even bother with them. But it was just so funny because putting them back like, oh, I didn't mean it. Was that me? Yes, I'm telling you.
The ticket price that first year was like $8 or $8.50. I remember in the early years, like the second or third year, when we got approaching that $10 mark, we were scared to death. I know the marketing guys were really worried. What are we going to do when we have to go to over $10? I remember the last year that we were $9.95, that once we go beyond this, over $10, it's really going to hurt attendance, but it didn't. We only had 2 coasters, and they were small. We needed a major roller coaster. We needed a looping coaster. That had just come out. John agreed with me, and we pushed St. Louis, and we finally convinced them that we needed to spend the money and do that. When Loch Ness Monster opened, it was the highest hill, the biggest, steepest drop of any roller coaster in the country. The opening went very well. When the train would come in the station, everybody'd be screaming and applauding, like they're giving the park a hand for building this ride. 1979, on opening day, you had these 2 beauty queens riding Loch Ness Monster, and we would bill it as Beauty and the Beast. The media's gonna love it. Come opening day, Pat, we got a problem out of Loch Ness. The coaster's stuck. Said, what do you mean it's stuck? And they decided it's gonna be a couple hours. I checked my watch, I said, it's like 15 minutes till opening. Press is here now. The park opens and people go in. Next day, the morning newspaper, Loch Ness flops as Busch opens. Oh, I hope St. Louis doesn't get this. Of course they did. Corporate office got it. That was probably one of the worst moments I had.
We accept nothing but the highest quality in the products that we produce.
When Mr. Busch came to town, it was all hands on deck, and he loved Williamsburg, so I think we might have gotten a lot more visits than maybe some of the other parks. Typically, there would be an entourage of people walking behind him, someone from each department, writing down what he expected to see, and by the next time he came, all those things were done, I assure you.
The park at that time had a lot of asphalt. August didn't like the black asphalt. We were walking through the park, and he says, I want you to get rid of this asphalt, because we need to replace it with concrete. Okay, I'll put in a request for it. So I put it in. It didn't get approved. He said, we can't afford to do that this year. You know, we got these other things we got to do. I said, all right, but August wanted it done, just so you know that. Oh, we'll talk to him. We'll talk to him, don't worry. Spring, August's first visit to the park. We didn't get 10 steps in. He looks down at the pavement, it's asphalt. He kicks it with his foot. He says, what's this damn asphalt still doing here? That was tough.
I was taking him through the park. We were maybe a month or 2 out from opening, so there's a lot of construction debris and stuff like that around the park, and I thought we had gone through the park and made sure that everything was pretty clean and pretty neat and all of that. And in walking August through the park, he reached into a bush and pulled out a Coors can, which obviously, given the fact that it was a Busch-owned park, was not the best day. I remember saying to him, I'll take that.
When the Wild Reserve opened, Mr. Busch wanted to come see the wolves. So we were asked to put sod down temporarily so he would see green sod. We finished laying the sod on the steep slope about 3 minutes before Mr. Busch came around the corner, and the wolves ran down on the sod. All the sod slid to the bottom there, and then they started picking up the sheets of sod and throwing them all over the place. And we had gone to all that trouble and all the expense of doing that, and right in front of Mr. Busch. So, you know, I mean, that was funny because as much as everyone wanted to impress him, there's only so much you can do. Things are going to happen. Mr. Busch took a personal interest in the landscaping, for which I'm very grateful, because that allowed us to do the quality that we did.
It is an exceptionally beautiful park. Family fun with this backdrop has always been the foundation.
The year we first started winning awards was 1990, and won them consecutively every year after that.
No general manager ever wants to be the general manager that loses the most beautiful theme park award, and we still continue to receive that year after year, and so it's kind of one of the jokes that we have of that. You just don't want to be the guy who's there when you lose it.
Along with the natural beauty and physical beauty of Busch Gardens, entertainment is one of its distinguishing characteristics that separates it from other theme parks, that separates it from being a ride park.
We wanted our parks to be something for everyone. We didn't want any one person in the family to veto a visit. So providing rides, shows, and really animal presentations where we could make something for everyone in the family.
It was amazing to see the power of those classic shows draw people in to dine and to relax.
Every baked item that you see in the park is created right here in our own bakery. All of our smoked meats come to us raw. We smoke them. All of our pasta in Italy, all of our sauce is homemade, and it has been for a number of years. It's kind of our signature here is that we don't buy things that are pre-made.
Theme parks are not generally known for their food as a reason to come. In Williamsburg, if you put a dot and drew a 100-mile circle, people within that circle, the ones that have come over the years and decades and then come back, they tell you one of the reasons is the food.
Fall of 1979, we were talking about what to do in 1980, and there's plans on the drawing board for a new country, and they decided to do Italy.
We were really running out of space for guests to stand in the park, and we were getting very busy, and we needed something that would spread that crowd out. The original park was pretty tight, so this seemed like a way to add square footage. We had Italian food, entertainment, and the merchandising was really unique because we brought people over from Italy to do things that they only do in Italy. It also gave us the confidence level that we could expand the park. The Loch Ness Monster, a lot of people would not ride because it scared the dickens out of them. We needed something that was more of a family ride. The Big Bad Wolf was a ride which had not really been done before. That technology was really new. And so we were one of the first to really experiment with it. It was a good ride. I respect the reason that they took it out. You know, when you build a ride like that, a lot of engineering goes into it, a lot of design calcs, but it doesn't always work exactly as you think it's going to work.
We have a very exciting roller coaster back behind us.
Yeah.
What would,
very exciting.
What,
a little weird.
What would Garth say from Wayne's World about this roller coaster?
Whoever thought of it should be killed.
And how about the church lady?
Well, isn't that special?
The first ride that I was involved in was in 1992, and it was the Drachenfire roller coaster. Our general manager at the time, Keith Kaysen, this was his first assignment, and he loved that ride. So from the very beginning, he was out at the job site very often.
When we open in the 1992 season, a more daring guest can look forward to riding a new, one-of-a-kind steel roller coaster, one of the 10 largest in North America, right here. How about that one?
Once we started testing the ride, he was the first one to volunteer to ride it.
I haven't gone on this one yet, so yes, I'm not really a fan, I'm a fear. So I hope to be as happy when I get off.
Ice was the project that we opened in 1997. You know, we had weather challenges and things like that, but we also have a lot of slopes. When that project was going in, I remember thinking, how in the world is this ever going to work? It definitely got to be a little bit challenging, but it all turned out well.
When you talk about Alpine Ice, it's a heart-pounding, aggressive, hard-hitting ride. Lots of twists and turns, coming down through all the terrain in the valley, interlinked with the flume.
This ride, we've designed it such that all the drops added together create the most drops, the most free-falling of any coaster that we know of.
Apollo's Chariot is a classic ride. That's a ride that, you know, when we open up the park in the morning and people are heading towards the first ride, you get a lot of folks that head right to Apollo's Chariot. You experience that weightlessness as you drop through all the hills and valleys.
We knew that animals are important to our company. In 2000, we put Jack Hanna's Wild Reserve in.
The greatest thrill I have are seeing animals from North America. That's what I love about this park here in Williamsburg. How many of you have ever seen a wolf before like this? I mean, nobody, right? Look at this.
Being in the zoological park business for the past 30 years, we really, in our business, took a lot of ideas from Anheuser-Busch because they were really the first innovators of natural habitats back in the 60s. And so they kind of started this whole thing. As you look at the habitat here, this is the closest you can probably get to any wolves of any zoological park I know of in the country.
Here we go.
Joe Fincher, the general manager before me, had tested an Irish-themed show prior to my arrival, and it was overwhelmingly successful. And Joe introduced the idea that we could take a village, Hastings, that was really underutilized, and guests were kind of running through it on the way to Oktoberfest. We could make something special out of it.
It was the first time that we had opened an entire village in years.
You would see cottage gardens, thatch roofs, vines. It was supposed to look like the little women who lived in the village collected and shared cuttings with their neighbors and plucked them in everywhere.
Opening that Ireland area that first day, there was shamrocks and rainbows everywhere, and there was so much color. And to just see what you'd done for the last year come together and be so wildly successful, that probably is my best memory.
When you put something new in, it allows you to say, folks, there's a reason to come back if you've been before, there's a reason to come if you have never been. And in this case, we have a very big reason.
It creates an environment that is so surreal that you think you might have really experienced it. You actually go back and go, how did they do that?
Today marks a milestone for our beautiful park. It's a day that's been nearly 2 years in the making, and it's finally here, the official grand opening of our new dive coaster, Griffin. The big conversation was really where to put it. I wanted to put it in New France. It ended up in France, so France and New France, two different areas. I think I was wrong. I think the wisdom of the company was right. We put it in the right place. And I remember when we did some PR to open the ride, I was all mic'd up, and Larry Giles, he and I were on the ride, and I had to talk. I had a spiel, a script that I had to give the whole way around, the way God made me. G-forces bother me, and the older I get, the more they bother me. So I can ride a ride once or twice, and I'll feel it, but not feel nauseous. So we had done it 2 or 3 times, and I think I told the director of the shoot that this was my last time. When we got in, I said that this is such a fantastic ride that even riding it 3 or 4 times with Larry Giles, it's still fun.
2009 is probably one of the most memorable years in terms of we're opening a new attraction with Forest of Fun. We're working on this Christmas Town project, and sadly, we closed the Big Bad Wolf. The Big Bad Wolf was a fantastic ride, and we sure hated to see it go because it was a classic, had a very low height requirement. So for a lot of kids and parents, they could ride together. But after reviewing where similar coasters were and the fact that they were retiring, we did a study, and we eventually made the recommendation that we close the ride. And it was the right decision to be made. And the folks have done an amazing job taking that site and honoring it with Verbolten. That last drop into the Rhine River evokes the Big Bad Wolf, but it's a new modern ride that I think will be a classic in its own right one day.
In my job, that's a great experience to be standing there on the day you open a ride and it kind of comes into the station and you're looking at their face. Are they smiling? Are they screaming? Are they laughing? That happened with Bolton. That was a big, complicated ride, big investment. And for me, that was a great relief on the day we opened to see the first train kind of coming around. And they were screaming and laughing and having a great time. And I'll tell you, that was one of my better days when I said, hey, I think we did a great job picking out that ride. Everybody that rode it, you see the smiles on their faces, you see them clapping when they come into the station, and that's what it's all about.
Donnie Mills had set up a project team to dust off the Christmas binder. There had been projects decade after decade that explored the feasibility of opening for a Christmas event. One of the big debates was there was a little bit of a tendency for people to want to be cautious about it and to open just one village. And as we got more of the analysis done for Christmastown, everybody became quite confident that it was going to be successful. So we made a determination to open more of the park, and I think it was a good call, as the park has proven over the past few years. Well, one of the challenges with Williamsburg is that at that time it was only open 180 days a year, and a lot of those days might be impacted by weather. So Christmas was a very attractive proposition by opening up the calendar, giving people a chance to visit at a different time of year with really a completely different experience. I would also say that Howlow Scream probably helped pave the way for Christmas. When Joe Fincher was the general manager in Williamsburg, he started the Halloween event. It was successful immediately, and it took a month of the year, October, that had never been one of the most highly visited months and really transformed it.
The Food and Wine Festival started as an inspiration. When I was in Copenhagen, I visited Tivoli Gardens. It's a very charming park, and it's all about family time. A family's going to Tivoli Park to have dinner. And when I was there, I just noticed how much people enjoyed the food and how it created such a great family atmosphere. I said, well, there's got to be some way we can integrate food more into our product, and that's where the Food and Wine Festival came from. It's been very successful, and you can tell from my waistline it's been very successful too.
Events have certainly proven with Christmastown and Howlow Scream and Food and Wine to be a really vibrant part of the park. They are very powerful in terms of calling members and others to come in for an additional visit and experience the park in a way that they have not.
Do you, Danny, take Janice to be your lawful wedded wife? Do you, Janice, take Danny to be your lawful wedded husband?
I do.
I now pronounce you husband and wife. Yay! Yay! Woohoo!
One of my first dates with my husband was here. I'd never seen anything like this park, and I'll never forget riding Big Bad Wolf for the first time with him. And we were early in dating, so I was nervous to begin with. And then we came around to the back of the park. I had never in my life seen anything like Dragonfire. I looked up at that loop and I threw up right then and there. Got myself together and I rode Dragonfire, and I was so happy because it was my one and only ride on it. It was removed from the park right after that. My kids are the only kids I know that know their height in inches, because we measure everything in inches to know what your next coaster is going to be. And I remember my middle daughter wanting to ride Big Bad Wolf, and she was not quite tall enough. It was closing, and so we kept measuring and we kept hoping she would grow, and she got her very first ride on the next to last day that it operated. I'll never forget the excitement of seeing her in that station. She just couldn't wait. It's a milestone. It's not always about the ride, it's about being part of something with our entire family. There's a lot of conversations that happen that go, can you imagine when we're all 54 inches, how great that's gonna be that we all go through the line and we all ride Griffin together. It makes us who we are as a family. For Griffin, I'll never forget my first ride. I had come in to help the park. I was gonna walk around and talk to the media and just chit chat with everybody all day on the ground in front of the ride. I'm ready to ride today. About 5:25 in the morning, they looked at me and they said, you're gonna do the camera today. I've never been on live TV. So I'm like, I'm gonna do what? They said, you're gonna go on the Dive Live camera. I said, okay. They put me in the seat, and at about 5:40, I rode Griffin. And I knew when I came off that first ride that I was gonna love that coaster for the rest of my life. And I came off, and they had been watching me through the camera, and they said, wow, you're gonna have to get that screaming under control today. Every time I ride it, I still get that same feeling, and I think that's why I love it so much. For me, it's a safe way to do scary things. Getting to have those memories of the funny moments, things to laugh about down the road. Whatever it is that memory is, it leaves us with a conversation. And I think that's what it's about for us, is keeping our family talking. And that's what always brings us back together. But it also brings a vision of what more can be. I look at my son, for career day, he always dresses up as an engineer at Busch Gardens. He always says, I'm gonna be Larry Giles when I grow up. It's what's given him a vision for what can be. I don't think most kids know that you can be a roller coaster designer and that you can be an engineer in an amusement park. And so he wears his little hard hat with Larry Giles' name tag.
Let's hear it, guys!
Back in the early days, and we would be eating breakfast when they would open up the Sky Ride and people would come around. My favorite story is these two kids are running, they're jumping, they're all excited, and the mother's getting all anxious, and the father comes up, settles them down, he says, look, it's Busch Gardens, we're here to have fun, and gosh darn it, we're gonna have fun.
One of our House Dream events, I was doing my normal rounds, walking around, and I noticed two female guests. They looked a little bit in distress. I said, hey, are you guys okay? And they said, we're very scared with Halloween, and we need to get out of here. So I walked them a safer route through some back areas for them to get to the front gate, and they were very thankful.
When we were building our Festa Village, we'd already opened 4 rides, and we were building another called the Gladiator's Gauntlet. Every morning, there was a person that came to that ride and stood there and watched us work on it all day long, 8 to 10 hours a day, and then he would leave. Every day for weeks and weeks. So we made sure that this fella got on the ride. The whole maintenance staff was elated when they saw this guy ride this ride, the very first person.
We were the old couple who always held hands in the park. Through the years, we've made friends with tons of the kids who've worked here and watched them grow up. We rode all the roller coasters. We rode the Griffin over 1,000 times, and that's where we met most of the kids that we knew. We always looked at their name tags, tried to remember who they were, because everybody should have a name. And that's how we became friends with all the kids. He died March 2012. It took me 6 to 8 months before I could come back to the park. I was driving Mike's car, and I must have driven past the park at least 5 times. And finally I drove in, and the young person waving us through, he said, well, where's your other half? And I just looked at him, and he actually started to cry. So it was really hard. I couldn't look at the Griffin for a while. Now I can look past it and smile. Good memories. I get stopped all the time and hugged. I have what I call park family. You feel like you're part of the family that's here. My ancestry is Russian. One day we were walking up and there was this boy and he had Russia on his tag, and my husband started talking to him, and his name was Alexander. We all became friends through the years. And when Michael passed, he came that Christmas so I wouldn't be alone, all the way from Russia.
I used to say during the orientation that over the last couple of months the park has been here, but it has no life. When the seasonal employees and part-timers came back, they brought the color, they brought the energy, the enthusiasm. It's what makes the park. You put everything out there, the shows, the rides, but until they get there, it's nothing more than bricks and mortar.
You have to practice aspects of leadership versus management because at the end of the day, it's a people job.
I went to high school not too far from the park. Working at Busch Gardens in the summer was pretty much what everybody did.
I started at the park when I was 17, and when I graduated from college, I was going to teach. I had wanted to teach music since I was 12.
I heard Busch Gardens was coming to town, and what more could you aspire for in the field of horticulture?
I started when I was 16 years old working at Busch Gardens in Tampa, parking cars in the parking lot.
I started at the culinary department at the Festhaus in Germany in 1977.
I asked for a job in food service. The word on the street was if you worked in food service, you could work as many hours as you wanted, and I wanted a car.
Found a newspaper and seen Busch Gardens. I got an interview, and here I am after 29 years.
I spent 2 years teaching, and I realized that I didn't want to be behind those same four walls anymore.
I wasn't sure what my goals were going to be from a career standpoint, so the company kind of adopted me.
Basically, we wore a medieval costume. They called them the M&Ms. One was green, one was orange, brown, poofy sleeves. Probably the hottest fabric you could find in the world. You definitely didn't want to stop and pump gas on your way home from work.
All the women wore dresses. Mine was Pepto-Bismol pink. People used to stop me at the gas station and ask me if I worked at Busch Gardens.
I went to military police in 1976, and during my time off, I went to work at Busch Gardens as a security officer.
Keith Kaysen, the president of Busch Entertainment Corporation, gave me a call and asked me if I'd be interested in going to Williamsburg and being the general manager.
I was moved up through the ranks, seasonal team member, lead supervisor, area supervisor.
Started in '74, moved around, but ended up in Williamsburg, and where I was lucky enough to become a general manager.
I didn't know I was going to be here for 40 years, but I certainly thought I would be here a long time.
I never imagined when I was graduating that I would be here as a full-time manager 20 years later.
It broadened me. It brought something out in me that I hadn't had to use before. It clearly made me a better person.
The culture of the park is that everyone chips in to exceed expectations, and that's what we did every day. And I can't imagine another work environment where you could have that same opportunity and same experience.
I'll personally always be grateful to Busch Gardens. What might have been just a summer job so I could get a car as a teenager turned into an amazing experience.
Once you get it in your blood, you just can't get rid of it. This is the summer job that I forgot to leave.
I took the time to talk to previous general managers, that first generation, the John Roberts and the Pat Cartwrights and the Mike Crosses and the Mel Bilbos of the world, Keith Kaysen as well. They've taught me everything I know about the business today.
It's part of my life, part of who I am. I love getting up every morning and coming to work.
Busch Gardens was my life for 34 years. It was all-consuming in a good way. Family members had to understand that because we were so enthusiastic about the job and we were so into it.
In 1994, half the roller coasters weren't here.
There's definitely a lot more rides here than there were back in '91.
I was a team member when Griffin opened, when Apollo's Chariot opened, when Verbolten opened. I was a team member when the Big Bad Wolf closed.
Watched Italy be built and Festa be built, watched Hastings turn into Ireland. It's just been wonderful to see.
So it's kind of neat, even when friends that come when their kids were younger, now they're in their 20s and they're bringing their children here. It's a lot of fun just showing them all the different things to ride and do.
Over the years, the park's really been able to adapt, but keep all the things that make it special and beautiful.
This year's new ride, Tempesto, I think is a great example of how we're continuing to invest in our product and continuing to carry forward the legacy. I think the future has great things in store for Busch Gardens.
There will be 40 more years here. I hope to see Loch Ness hit 100 years old like a lot of other roller coasters.
I can't wait to bring my grandkids here and to bring my son as he gets older. And who knows, maybe my son will work here. Maybe this will be his first job. I want to be able to make those same memories that my parents had with me and my grandparents had with me in 20, 30, 40 years.
The Williamsburg Park, I think, is maybe more unique than most parks in terms of the credibility that it has with the people who live in the Hampton Roads area. It's their park, and they believe in it. If something isn't going right, they'll tell you about it, and they want it corrected because it's their park.
We are such a staple now to this area. We add so much that where would we be without Busch Gardens?
Back when I worked there, one of the slogans that Anheuser-Busch had was, "Making friends is our business." I think that's what Busch Gardens was all about.
Because the park and the people were so friendly and nice, it was a good family atmosphere. I think we felt like we were actually a part of the park, not just a guest in the park. When you come to the park, you feel like you're visiting an old friend that you had a very good time with, and you want to have another good time, and you hope that your family will come back and continue to have that good time.
It's really interesting when you think about Busch Gardens. Some of the first words that will come to people's minds inevitably are beautiful, world's most beautiful theme park, and they'll think about the facility, but really, I think their love for Busch Gardens, what's really behind it are people. And it can be the team members that work there, all the people that have worked there over the past 40 years, but it's also the tens of millions of guests that have gone there and created amazing memories with their family members and their friends over the years. So sure, it's a beautiful place. I think it'll always be, but that's not what makes it special. What makes it special is the people.
Through chaos, through change, it's somewhere we can always visit, and it takes us out of our lives and lets us be in this safe environment. Busch Gardens has been an anchor for us.
When you see a family spend time together that maybe they haven't spent time together over the last few months, it's a holiday, it's a special time. You sitting in shows, seeing this, enjoying spending time together, really, it was going to be a successful park.
The last time I was there, 9 or 10 years ago, with my daughter and the grandkids, and they were little, and because they remembered they were riding the kiddie rides, and they had a number of kiddie rides there then that we certainly didn't have back when I was there. I wish we had, because they got quite a few of them now. I remember telling my grandkids that stuff that was new and everything. Say, really, Grandpa, you did this or did that, and these were here then? I said, no. I said, these rides weren't here then, but these over here, that Loch Ness monster. I said, I was here when that was built. I was here in the whole park. I said, really, Grandpa? You were here? Yep. I said, I was here.
We started as an extension of the beer company, and now we've proven over 40 years that we're not just a beer company. We don't have the beer company any longer, and we're still just as strong, and the brand is just as strong, and the experience here is just as strong.
One of the keys to not only the survival of Busch Gardens in Williamsburg over the past 40 years, but the endurance and the success is its unique ability to adapt, but to maintain some of the same characteristics and uniqueness that it opened with in 1975. So it's still known for beauty, still known for European flair, even though attractions come and go, village names come and go. The Big Bad Wolf may go, but Verbolten comes in and it's newer and modern and it'll be a classic in its own right. Ownership has changed, but the park's been able to adapt and be resilient and actually thrive.